All right, here we go. Episode number 2.5, whatever.
Yeah,
We
we're
won't
back.
count that very first one.
Yeah, working out some kinks still.
Still working out kinks, trying to get some good lighting, get some good stuff going, good camera angles.
Yeah,
I
audio.
think we got the
Just trying to be able to
I think
hear
we
you.
got the situation figured out. Still
Yeah,
can't
we'll
hear
see.
very well, or you're good?
No, I got you great. I think it's just as good as it's going to get with this setup that I got. So we'll roll with it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, audio's a little better from my end.
Yeah, it sounds good. Sounds good to me. Hopefully it just stays like that, because it seems like it's been inconsistent. We don't know when it's going to go to crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think a big thing that we need to talk about, and we talk about this all the time, but it seems every single year we have to repeat ourselves, and it's kind of, I don't want to call it an epidemic. I feel like that's a buzzword. It's overused for sure. It's like calling people toxic. I can't stand that shit. That's like one of those words where I'm like, if someone
Yeah.
says the word toxic, I just turn off my brain. Like, oh, I don't want to listen to you anymore.
Yeah.
Same thing with epidemic, very similar. But
Yeah.
one is just training in season. We run into this all the time. Every year you have, it happens at every level. It happens high school level. It happens college. It happens in pro ball, even in the big leagues, where guys work severely hard, like all off season, or anytime they have like downtime, they're not playing a lot. They work super hard. They're in the gym every day. They're busting their ass. They're, working mechanically on different things, maybe some different pitches. But then the season comes along and they just completely stop doing anything, and it's usually, well, I don't have enough time. I don't, we have a lot of games. We have practices. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you feel younger athletes, especially at the high school level? I mean, it happens, like I said, everywhere, but what is kind of something that you've noticed over the years and noticed about the guys that do it well?
Yeah. Well, most people don't realize that you need to train year round. Training just looks differently out of season versus preseason versus in season. And then everyone's individual situation changes how that dynamic should look. Some guys, they're chasing performance goals or chasing velo in the offseason or weight gain or strength gain or big biomechanical adjustments. But then in season, what you're training for is to repeat it, to stay healthy, to be consistent. There's a lot of guys that have the misconception that, okay, I've worked enough, I'm good now. Or they have the perception that, hey, I don't need to do what I did in the off season because I'm going to get hurt. Really, if they don't do that, that's when they're going to risk getting injured. That's when they're going to risk having poor performance, because then they've started to limit their ability to repeat what they've been able to build in the off season or preseason. And that's a conversation that we have to have every year. I think, it's really disheartening for some of the guys that they start making progress, they hit a PR, or they're just starting to finally repeat the things that they've done well. And then they go, okay, hey, I'm in season. I'm going to have to change everything I've done now and do this completely differently. When in reality, all they have to do is pivot a little bit with volume or intensity or a little bit of change of schedule and pace. But going from 100 to 0 is one of the most common mistakes that guys make. And it's often parents of younger athletes that they're under the impression of this seasonality of training. Or it's like this old school perception of you're going to get hurt if you lift weights, when in reality, weak shit breaks and kids just start getting weak and something gets hurt or they have poor performance. But yeah, like I said, it's a common thing that we have to reinforce so that these athletes don't go down the road of doing their best, starting to limit the amount of time they're focusing on the things that have helped them get good. And then all of a sudden they're back in the same boat of just not performing well, having pains, coming back to us in 3 or 4 months. But I guess, yeah, my point, circle back on that. It's very often parents that have this perception of the seasonality of training that think, okay, hey, my son's been doing great or my daughter's been doing great. Let's go ahead and just stop what he's been doing so he can focus on playing. And it's usually because they've been doing lessons or they have some type of camp culture where it's like, okay, he's got to get ready for this one showcase, one camp, and then after that, he's good. He should be able to repeat it. He hit 90. Okay, great. He can stop training now. He throws 90. When in reality, if you don't keep using it, keep doing it, keep
Yeah.
building, keep adjusting, it's not a perpetually growing process for them. Long answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's perfect because I believe a lot of times when guys work really hard in the off season, they might be lifting like 4 times a week and they think like, "Oh, I can't keep that up. I can't lift 4 times a week while I'm playing." And it's like, "Yeah, no shit. You're not going to be doing that." And I think they put this value on like only, when they train with us, it's like, "Well, I can't lift 4 times a week, so there's no sense of me even going in there." And it's just like, well, things pivot once you get in season. And I talk to like my remote guys about this as well. When they're in season, we're not doing the same things. We're going to try and maintain all of those gains that we made, in the off season. And in reality, you are going to lose a little bit. You're not going to end the season after, if you're in the big leagues, you might deadlift or you might squat or do something in the off season and you PR or you're stronger than you've ever been. When the season's over, I guarantee you're not going to come back your first workout and be PRing in the weight room. It's just not the way it works. And that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to be successful on the field. So workouts, mobility, throwing program, all of that stuff looks different in season. And I don't think that a lot of athletes and, like you said, parents, I just don't think they realize that. And one of the reasons we want to do this type of podcast is to kind of educate and let those people know that that's not how it works. You don't work hard, stop doing anything, and you just keep your muscle. That's like one of the things that goes very quickly. And I have a story about myself. Like when we were right before COVID, I wanted to bench like 400 pounds and I didn't know if I was going to be able to do it, but I was doing these workouts. And when I was able to bench 355. So I went back through all these different workouts that I was doing to get to 355 and I was putting up way bigger numbers. And I'm like, man, I'm going to freaking bench 400. I know I'm going to do it. And then COVID happens, right? We both find ourselves in Texas, in El Paso, and I had like a month, wasn't able to lift, wasn't able to go into the gym, with all the crap going on, and got back in the gym, thought, oh, I'll pick up right where I left off. It was only a month. And I went through and I remember like, all right, I'm going to go through my bench. I'm going through my warm up and I get to 360 and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to throw out 360 real quick because, I want a PR and then we'll go from there. And I took 360 off, touched my chest, went up. Oh man, couldn't budget. And I had put in all that work to try and get higher, and I was putting up numbers to get higher. But just a month of not lifting, my strength it fell below what it was before. So
Yeah.
imagine that during the course of a season, just a month, you don't do anything, you don't lift. You're going to lose so much strength. You're going to lose so much mobility. You're going to get in bad habits with your mechanics if you don't have someone there that's watching them, that knows where you need to be in your movement patterns. So it's just one of those things where it makes no sense to me. And we say this all the time, but we can continually have these conversations with people, and you just hate to see them make this mistake that everyone makes, but it happens.
Definitely. Yeah. You know, here's the truth about recruiting. A lot of kids, a lot of athletes, they want to hit their PRs and just get seen before the season starts, anticipating that, okay, someone's going to pay attention enough, see how they are, go, oh, look, this kid threw 90 one time in my camp or one time before the season. I saw a video on Twitter or X or whatever. And the reality is they want to see these athletes perform with it, sustain it, not just be able to do something and have the potential to throw hard or hit hard or run fast, but they want to see how they perform with it throughout a season, see them enough, see what kind of longevity they have, how they can compete and deal with adversity. There's so much more of the nuance that goes into the recruiting. than just hitting a number. And that's part of the game for sure. They need to have the performance metrics to be able to get on the radar to get their foot in the door. But if they can't sustain it, we've seen this happen year after year. Even one of our first years, we had a high level athlete, crazy numbers on a breaking ball. He had an amazing season, I think a 1 ERA with like 100 plus strikeouts in a high school season, 88, 89 beginning of the year. Goes to an all-star game, has 7 D1 schools looking at him, 80 to 83, and still performed fine, did okay. Obviously, you can compete with a low 80s fastball in high school and even in a JC level, but they said, yeah, he just doesn't have the ability to translate this to a 50 game season or a 75 game season. And obviously, 162 is a totally different beast. And I think that's something that we tried to help for athletes to prepare for. It's not just about getting to your goal, it's about staying there and being able to repeat it. And that's where having things like the recovery tools, Normatec, red light, cupping, PEMF, cold tub therapy, the mental side of how you deal with ups and downs throughout a season. That's where a lot of athletes are brand new to that process. They've been chasing velo and strength numbers, but they need to understand in season and especially different periods of the year, they have to be able to raise their lower level of performance. So if they top out at 88, but their low end is 80, 81, they got to raise that up. Maybe you sit 85 and you're stuck at 89 for a year or 6 months, but you have to get that low end up. Otherwise, your averages are just not going to apply to the next level.
Yeah, and how many times do we see like somebody, they have a good bullpen or they go to a showcase or they go to a tournament and they're at their peak and they commit to a school. Like we've seen so many guys, D1 commits, maybe well, you can't commit now as a freshman or anything like that, but we saw that years ago where guys would be freshmen and the school would bank on them developing and then it wouldn't happen, so they decommit.
Yeah.
But we've also seen so many times where a kid starts the season, they're 90 plus. Oh man, all these schools want them. They commit, and then they'll play their season. They'll play in the summer. They'll play way too many games. Won't be training, and then all of a sudden that same school sees them in the fall at like a showcase, and they're 85, and they go like, "Oh wait, we don't want this kid anymore. We're going to decommit to him because he's not where we wanted." Meanwhile, all they had to do was continue that training, realize, hey, you're committed. You probably shouldn't be playing that many games. You shouldn't be overexposing yourself because the only thing that can happen in that scenario is something bad. It's not like they're going to go, oh man, this guy, now he's throwing 95 and he's committed to us. Let's give him a bigger scholarship. You know what I mean? It's just, that's not the way it's going to work. It's going to go the opposite, where they're just going to go, either, hey, all right, this is exactly what we thought was going to happen, or you're going to overexpose yourself and they're going to say, oh man, we have like 10 kids coming in and we got to get rid of 5 of them. So this guy's first to go. I mean, it happens all the time with that scenario. And another thing is people don't realize is in those cases where your performance starts to suffer, you stop doing everything and you lose muscle mass, you lose strength. I don't think enough people also realize that throws off your mechanics. If you're a posterior dominant pitcher and you sit into your back hip, and you're using your glutes and hamstrings to kind of rotate down the mound, you lose that glute and hamstring strength. Now all of a sudden you start breaking your knee forward because you don't have that strength to make that same mechanical adjustment in game, or that you've been doing at the beginning of the season. Now your direction gets off. You start swinging that leg open. Your torso starts coming with it. Now you're all over the place. And that's another thing too. Not only mechanical things are affected by strength, but also as a pitcher, your command. We always see this thing where if you're not throwing strikes or you're not performing well, you need to work on your mechanics. And sometimes that's true, but sometimes you need to work on your mechanics because you lost so much strength and you're not repeating what you were doing before.
That's such a great point, and I feel like that's a tangent conversation we could hit on for hours with Like what you said, these athletes need to have the capacity to maintain their strength to perform at a certain level, but also simply to just repeat what they're doing. We have a lot of parents, um, and this will change how you think about mechanics. There's a lot of parents, a lot of athletes that think, oh, he needs to come in and work on his mechanics. But the reality is, they might not have the capacity to even repeat their mechanics for a bullpen or a day or 2 days or a week or a month. So no matter how much we practice their perfect mechanics, they don't have the athletic proprioception to do it. Athletes, they're adaptable. They're going to figure out a way, the path of least resistance, whether for pain or for performance, to be better. And the good athletes will go, oh, hey, it's not working right here in that arm slot. So let me get down here. Okay, that feels better, or that's more effective. I'm just going to keep doing that. And then when they haven't trained, or they stop training, or they don't have some objective metrics to understand this is what's changing throughout the path of the season, that's where they risk injury, poor performance, or both, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just saw a post recently with Ryan Croton. Obviously a good friend of ours and just a very smart person.
One of
Um,
the smartest.
you always like to, yeah, yeah. I mean, he's ridiculously smart. He's just one of those guys you want to be around and learn from. Um, but he was talking about as you lose strength, some guys will be in like a higher slot and they'll realize like they're starting to lose strength so they can no longer get into that slot. So their arm will start going down here. And, superior and elite athletes know when something's off and they know like, oh man, my arm slot seems like it's dropping. But because they don't have the strength to stay up, they'll start leaning towards like glove side, so their arm will go up back into the slot, but now they've completely changed their posture just based off of, a strength issue. And it has nothing to do with their mechanics rather than, they're losing strength. They're losing strength in their shoulder and they can no longer repeat that over and over and over. So they start bending to the side and you know, all of a sudden they get an injury or they get like an oblique injury or they just suffer poor performance where this could be totally, um, you know, it doesn't have to happen because you just need to keep that strength up. But like we're talking about, it's just such a thing that happens at every level, and it can be prevented very easily.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When it comes to the in season training, just to stay on that topic, I think it cannot be stressed enough how important it is to have consistency, not just for strength and for performance, but also on the mental side. So many athletes will go through unexpected adversity, whether it was a performance side, something they're dealing with as far as pain, coaches' decisions, they're getting benched in positions where they thought they should have been on the field. Having mentorship, guidance with routine where they can stay confident through their preparation because they have a consistent routine and they know whether you go 4 for 4, 0 for 4, whether you give up 3 home runs or you strike out the side in your appearance, you have a routine you're going to stick with because at the end of the day, it's just one outing, one game. And in baseball, what makes it such a great game is it's not about one game. It's about the longevity of the season, but all you can control is that one game, one inning, one pitch. And the people that can do that the best, where they can stay focused in those compartmentalized windows and then have consistency over the long term, they typically have the most success.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I was just,
Sorry, there's a little delayed there.
I think we're on a little bit of a delay here, but I
Yeah,
had a guy I was just talking to last night, a remote guy. He was pitching. He threw in his first game, struck out 10 guys, in 5 innings, which is crazy, right?
nice.
That's a lot of strikeouts in like five and two
Yep.
thirds. He threw 115 pitches, which I wouldn't suggest in your first outing. Haven't been on the field at all year. And your first game, you're on a baseball field, you throw 115 pitches. And one reason because of that, he walked 6 guys, um, and he hit 3 guys. So, but it's just such a weird outing, right? Where he was either way ahead in the count. When he was ahead, he just punched him out, or he would relax and be like, "Oh, okay, I got 2 quick outs," and the next thing you know, he's walking 2 or 3 guys in a row, and loading the bases. And we talk about training in season, but this also just having that mental capacity to be able to know what is happening, what is going on, having a mentor, having someone to talk to, and I love that stuff. Like I can talk all day about baseball, and obviously we have a training facility, training program, and a lot of time is spent on the physical and preparing yourself for the game, preparing physically to have success on the field. I think a lot of times the mental side and those adjustments gets overlooked. And that's why we always love to talk about like our experience, because this kid can give me a call anytime and we can talk about those things. And, I was basically telling him just a different mindset. Um, y- you see it all the time. Even I've had this issue before where you come out, you strike out, or you get 2 quick outs, and then all of a sudden you're 3-0 on the third hitter. And it's really finding that mental strength and that mental toughness to keep yourself locked in for the next hitter. And really be able to attack them and not just relax, and then all hell breaks loose and you've got to like lock back in. And what I was telling this guy is, because it was such a unique situation to strike out that many guys, walk that many guys, but he only gave up like 2 earned runs. And most of it was because when he did get in trouble, he went like, it snapped him out of it. And he went, "Oh crap, I got to like bear down and get this guy out." And obviously the key is to do that before the shit hits the fan and you've got bases loaded, because then all it takes is just one unlucky thing, or um, you give up a flare or something and a bunch of runs score. So obviously, if you do that time and time again, bad things are going to happen. But that's also a strength to be able to like lock in and go, "Hey, I'm in trouble right here. I better freaking focus and get this guy out." And when you have 2 outs in a game, you're one pitch away all the time. You're just one pitch away from getting out of it. So having those things in mind, it was just a reminder to me. I just love talking about the game, and that's one thing I think that's why we want to do this, is because we love talking about the game. We love talking about training. We love helping people get better at the game and using everything that we know to accomplish that. And it's such I don't want to say a gift, but it's just something that not many people have the capacity to do. And we aren't just training guys. We talked the last time, about just helping a guy with his recruiting, and I don't think there are programs like that. If you go to some of the bigger programs, they're helping you train, and they might have a pro day or something, but I don't think they're actively talking to college coaches. I don't think they're actively like searching out pro ball opportunities for guys that may not have had one. So I think that just really separates us from really everybody else that's out there.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the core reasons why we do this, or why we've continued to pour more into our athletes, is we just feel so passionately about helping people along their path, whether it's just getting into high school, trying to make varsity, getting their performance metrics up, or it's that older athlete, they haven't had a chance in pro ball yet, they're not sure how to go about it, or it's a guy that's been in the big leagues, and you can resonate with them as far as their routine, how they can redefine themselves, like how they can handle the pressures that come with that and playing in front of 40,000 people. um, but this will change how you see training. When we talk about training, we're talking about all of that, the nuance of everything, the mental side, the nutrition, like how you can get seen with your recruiting during season, even if you're not performing well. Um, but there's a lot of parents and athletes, and I say parents because a lot of our athletes are high school athletes, and their decisions are really driven by their parents, where they're
For
under the
sure.
impression that they can do all of this in a short window, in a 2-month window, a 3-month window. Oh, hey, we're going to just do whatever during the season. But when summer comes, that's when we're going to start, and that's when we're going to get seen. But when we talk about training, it isn't like you said, just lifting 4 days a week, really focusing on velocity or big power development. It is all of it. It's how you can stay healthy. It's how you can sustain your pitching routine, your hitting routine, what helps you stay mentally locked in, how you can separate yourself off the field definitely helps you separate yourself on the field. And a big part of that is just surrounding yourself with people that have that high level of expectation. You know, they're wanting exceptional results. So they can't be around mediocre commitment. They can't be around guys that don't really want to work as hard as they say they want to. And so for us, that's where we've just really poured into our athletes and really tried to give them all of the understanding throughout the season, throughout the year, throughout the next year, and how they're all connected. And there's so many ways that we can take this conversation because that's really how we've evolved over the years is we do more than we even advertise. I think one of the things that I brought up with one of our guys or trainers here is that currently, right now, I'm working with 4 guys that have the yips. And so how do you do that? There's a big part of your mental routine, your physical preparation, getting you in these incremental periods where you can just build confidence. And a lot of that is just you have to have some type of success in something like your velo's going up, your strength's going up. But there's programs or there's parents and people that they just go with, maybe the cheaper option or something that's closer. And then they don't realize, hey, your son's going through these ups and downs throughout the year. They're losing confidence. He's got the yips. His arm is hurt and they're searching for answers. So that's what I mean. This will change how we talk about training and how people will see training as not just strength or baseball or mental or nutrition or recruiting. It's all of it. And it has to be comprehensively understood. It has to be completely and thoroughly evaluated over and over again. Otherwise, you're definitely leaving some type of performance off the table, or you're just undershooting your workload and now you're behind schedule. And that's why they're not getting recruited or that they're not getting signed or they're not performing at the level that they thought they should have.
Yeah, it's all of those little minute things. Um, and we'll see guys if they don't have a lift or whatever, they won't come in. And it's like, well, you still got to come in. Like, come in, do your throwing, do recovery. We have so many recovery tools in there, more than most. And I always see guys too. They'll train so hard, they're working so hard, but they don't recover very hard. You know, they're
Mhm.
not making sure they're getting enough sleep. They're not getting enough rest. If they do have a day off, they're playing like Fortnite and a shit ton of video games that are taxing, their central nervous system, and they're playing video games, sweating their ass off on a recovery day. And you're like, dude, like chill out, relax, drink a glass of water or something, get some sleep, get some rest. Don't drink 20 Red Bulls today. But that's all part of it. You can train, and I feel like training is hard. It's hard enough, but it's also the easy part because if you're in the weight room, you're lifting weights, anybody can do that. My dad just turned 88 yesterday and he just
Yeah,
started.
happy birthday.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty pumped, but he just started going up to my cousins, walking around one of his buildings and lifting weights with my 2 other uncles, and they play catch and stuff like that. You know, Anybody can lift weights and anybody can get stronger. It does not take talent. So that's kind of the easy part for everyone. But the other things take like a ton of commitment. Obviously, showing up every day takes a ton of commitment, but it's just those smaller things that sometimes you don't feel like doing it. I mean, I go through this myself, and I'm actually not as good as I used to be at it. I'm just um, I need to start getting better again at my routine. But even something as simple as taking like vitamin D, you know, I'll sit there and I'll be like, the thing's sitting right there on the shelf and I can see it. All I need to do is open it up, take it out, and take some vitamin D, and I'll just be like, yeah, I don't want to do that today, for no reason other than I don't know. I just don't feel like it. It's not that hard, but it's so hard to stay committed to a routine, to those different things, and that's where it gets tough. Just recovery is hard because it does take time. Um, and it doesn't take like talent to recover. It just takes time and it takes a commitment to do it. And it's like everything with this. You have to be committed. If you want to be at the highest level possible for yourself, you have to be committed in the weight room. You have to be committed to, your mechanics. You have to be committed to your recovery, your mental health, your mental skills, your mental toughness. And these are just, you can be good at one thing, but if you're not good at all of it, then you're going to have a hard time, reaching the peak level of success for yourself.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that. There's a what's the saying that we've always talked about, or at least lately, we've really brought up this perception that how you do anything is how you do everything. And that can be applied to something as simple as like an athlete's routine, like, oh, you don't really take your warm up very seriously. You don't recover well. You're not focusing on your nutrition or your sleep. You're not at your peak then. You're not ready to be the best version of yourself if that's how you're going to go about the smaller details. There's times where, of course, you're not going to be 100% motivated, 100% effort, but consistency over a long period is going to beat talent and intensity of effort in short windows every time. And we've seen that with so many athletes that have not been the most physically gifted, the most highly touted, highly recruited ones, but they just show up every day, do their work, control what they can control. And then ultimately people are shocked and they're like, hey, how did that guy get to that level? Or, hey, what's the secret for this guy? And it's like, well, he showed up every day for 3 years, 6 days a week, no complaints, did his work. And it's that simple. And most people just can't agree to do that. So if I had to give some advice to a high school athlete or a college athlete, it would be consistent. Control your attitude.
Yeah.
Be consistent. Have a quality of effort. And a lot of things will start to work out your way if you can just focus on that.
Yep. That's a huge key. Just showing up. I mean, you gotta have some intent when you get there, but just showing up is the first place to start every single time. And like you said, we've seen it time and time again. I talked about this before. I might have talked about this the first time. I have to edit this.
I think I lost you there for a sec.
Yeah, hold on. You there?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to have
It
to
frees
edit
up on
that
you?
out because I had my dad calling me. I thought I had it on Do Not Disturb.
I don't know why. I
and
thought I
dad
had
was
my
calling
phone
me.
on. Yeah, I have DND on mine too, but mine still had a few things pop up. So I think it cut out earlier. But yeah, I feel like I'm talking
Hold on.
too many bullet points. I'm like, this idea and then this idea.
There we go. All right, I think we're
I
back.
got so many things that I want to get back onto. All right, we good?
Yeah. Well, what I was saying, I'll kind of edit that missing piece out right there. But I think we talked about this maybe a couple times ago or last time where we had those guys that were just so underwhelming. They're throwing in the 50s. They're not hitting very well. They're not very athletic. Mobility is like they're a 70-year-old trapped in a 13-year-old or 14-year-old's body. And they were just consistent, and I didn't know what the heck to do. I was like, what? How are we going to help this dude? Like, what are we going to do for this kid? He's just not good, You hate to say that, but it's obviously true sometimes. And just the fact, and we've had multiple guys in this situation, and they just keep showing up, keep showing up, keep showing up. Fail a bunch of times, not do something well. And then next thing you know, they're 6 months, a year in, and you start going, whoa, he looks like an athlete right there. Like he didn't fall down in his bullpen today. There were kids that would throw a bullpen and they would literally fall on the ground. How many times? And it'd just be like, what's happening right now? But then all of a sudden they start becoming more coordinated. They get a little more, body control and body awareness, and they start doing things that we didn't expect. And, that's a testament to them. It's a testament to our program, but it's also a testament to them to be able to put in that work and know. I'm sure they weren't sitting there going like, man, I'm really good. Like I'm going to play in the big leagues or something like that. And I don't think they were that delusional, but all of a sudden they start showing up and you can just see confidence. And it's just from putting in the work every single day. It's such a cool thing to see. And it was something that when we started this, I just didn't expect. I never expected to work with kids like that. And now we find ourselves, we would never turn away somebody who's willing to work hard.
That's fair. Yeah, I'd say the major prerequisite that we try to establish anytime we decide that we want to mentor someone or we're going to bring someone into our program is they have to be ready to commit to their process. And it doesn't have to be the exact same. It's usually not ever really the exact same as anyone else's routine, but they have to be able to stay consistent with the commitment to their process. Because if they can't, then it's just the results will be inconsistent. They'll be deterred the first time they face adversity. And that's been some of the most rewarding people to work with, are the guys that weren't obviously already D1 projected or pro draft picks. One of the guys like Liam just recently signed a pro contract and he had, average numbers at Swarthmore. And I had to Google where that was. And I was like, okay, where is this guy
Yeah.
from? What is he doing? But he's been
Same.
consistently in the program, doing everything, listening, learning something, being hungry for more information, more ways to have consistent days back to back of small improvements. And all of a sudden we look up and he's throwing 95. He's physically fit. Mentally, he's prepared to play at a pro level because he's been around those guys day in and day out in the facility. And it's like, hey, you know what? This guy's actually got a real chance. And there was plenty of days where I'm sure he didn't feel his best or he didn't want to do the work, but he's here. And I'm pretty sure he's here like right now, wrapping up some of his arm care routines. And those are the guys that we love to work with that just consistently show up and have a good attitude about it and just are ready to get after it, even if it is just a small detail they're trying to work on that day, like recovery or, getting back to be prepared for their end of the week high intent day. So always fun to work with those pro guys, the guys that are super gifted or super talented. But I would say the guys that can just be consistent will make the biggest progress. And those are some of the most rewarding that I've had to work with for sure.
Yeah, I'd say the exact same. And we talk about guys that don't do enough during the season, right? That's always a big thing. But with that being said, we can go the other way, and there are guys who do too much during the season. I've had guys that I'm programming them. They're a starter, at the college level or whatever. I'm programming them 3 lifts a week. And they lift like 7 days a week. And I'm just like, what are you doing? You can't do that. Like, your goal is to perform on the field. That is not going to help you be a better pitcher or be a better player. We have guys that do too much, pre-throwing. I just had this, and I kind of brought it up in our meeting with our staff the other day. Is we have to make sure our warm-up routines are just that. They're for warming up so you can perform at the highest level and stay injury free. But a lot of guys, they take it way too far. So they just do way too much. And this is something I did recently with a guy. Was I obviously we're big fans of the arm care system, armcare.com. We've been using it for years. We've used their dynamometer for testing and their programs, their arm care programs. And I mean, it's been a game changer for a lot of guys. But with that being said, I had this specific guy. He tested him the day before I was going to have him throw. So I gave him a fresh exam. He tested his internal, external scaption strength, pinch grip strength, and they were at a certain level. Okay. It wasn't his PR by any means, but it was pretty high. And then I said, all right, tomorrow I want you to go through your warm up. I am going to give you this fresh exam again after your warm up, and we're going to see. Technically, it should probably go up, because if you're warming up a little more, you're getting ready to throw, like throw high intent, throw a bullpen, your strength should be up a little bit higher. And if you're warming up and doing the right things, I would anticipate that it either stays the same at least or goes up. Well, this specific athlete warmed up, and again, he did way too much. He was throwing way too hard. He's doing his plyo throws at like 100%, like grunting. and we give him a test, and his strength dropped by a ridiculous amount. And so, if you're familiar with the Arm Care app and the Arm Care system, if there it'll give you like little warnings and little like red flags if something's down. So if you lose a ton of strength, it might give you a yellow for watch or give you like a pink for warning. If you get a green, like a bluish green or whatever it is, that's like a medical. That means, hey, something's really wrong. You better go see a doctor. And his strength dropped all the way to the medical just because of his warm up. Now, the next day or his next test, it obviously went back up, but it was strictly just his warm up had that big of an effect. And if you think about it, you're sitting there and you haven't even thrown a pitch yet, but you already lost a ton of strength just from your warm up. Like that's the stuff that can't happen. And that's where
Mhm.
I feel like that's a common mistake as well. And as much as not doing enough is a common mistake, doing too much with certain guys is also a very common mistake because you feel like, hey, if I'm not doing something, I'm not getting better. And that's where, like we talked about earlier, hey, you just need to recover harder. You don't need to, lift more or do more or throw more. And that's one of those fine lines with pitching is you can't just keep throwing and keep throwing and keep throwing. You have to throw and then rest. And there are other things you can do in between that. But, as we know, that's also just not a very, very good thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, it cut out there for a second, but you got me okay?
Yes.
You there?
Yeah. You there?
Okay. Yeah, no, the thing froze up on me for a second, but I got you now.
Okay.
Yeah, just to stay on that topic, I would say that both of us at some point were a little bit more in that camp of like the more is better, more effort, more energy, more workouts. And, short story about myself, even, I was doing that constantly. I'd work out 7 days a week for sure, for probably the majority of my career. And even in one of my very first spring trainings, I think with Milwaukee, it might have been my first spring training. I was waking up 4:30, 5 o'clock, doing a mile run on my own, coming back, eating breakfast, showering before the bus to over to the facility. And I don't think it helped me. If anything, I think I ended up pulling my quad or tweaking
No
my
chance.
quad in one of the base running, like, um, sessions that we had. And, I was a catcher. Like, they weren't expecting me to, like, go run like a 6.5 60, but it was more, get back in the weight room, go do extra lifts after we lifted earlier in the day. Um, and that was what was hard for me to break that perception that more wasn't better, better was better. And there's never been a better time to train and develop with quality information and good experience than right now, where you have all the data. You can make decisions unbiasedly. You can look at something like Arm Care, which they have a $10,000 guarantee that if you get hurt while advocating or if you get hurt while following their program and following it specifically to what they recommend, they'll still give you a $10,000 return for that. They just guarantee, like, hey, you shouldn't. Like, if you listen to this, you should know that, hey, I need to take a day or I need to do more recovery or, hey, maybe here's how I pivot a little bit with my routine. And I think in my experience, that's how I thought most athletes were, is they tried to do more and we had to back them off. And I've realized there's kind of a good mix. There's some that they don't want to do anything. They'll lift a weight and they'll be scared for a month, like, oh man, now I'm going to get hurt. So
I'm
that was
sore. I'm so
interesting
sore.
to start to have those conversations. Yeah, I'm sore, so that means I need a week off. Like, no, you're sore in a
Yeah.
way that you should be. You need to get in here. Like, hey, if you're a high school athlete, you need to be lifting. You need to be getting stronger. You need to be learning about your body, learning about a routine that's going to help you stay healthy. Because most of the guys, they just don't have the capacity to play in a pro level or a college level. And they can do it for maybe a day or a week or a month, but they cannot sustain it for the level of what it would take to be a big leaguer. And that's why you don't see 17-year-olds in the big leagues. Maybe you see a really talented, very physical 21-year-old, but you don't see 15, 16, 17-year-olds that can do that at that level and sustain it.
Yeah.
Sorry, off
We
topic there a little bit.
no, that's I kind of did the same thing when I first came up to the big leagues. I was just always had to do more, had to do more. And I wasn't performing the way I wanted. So I was like, well, I'll just work harder, you know? And I would go out, I'd take a jog around the city. You know, if I'd leave PNC, I'd go out the gate, I'd run around, I'd run across the bridge over into the city, I'd run for, like 4 miles. And it got to the point where I'd come back across like Roberto Clemente Bridge. I'd be running down as soon as I hit like right by the water. One of the I can't remember what river's back there. Jeez, people in Pittsburgh are gonna slaughter me for that one. I don't know if it's the Ohio. I know it's the Monongahela, the Ohio, and the Allegheny come together right there in Pittsburgh. I don't know which one's behind the stadium though. But anyway, so I'm just sprinting. I would get down and I'd finish my run the last bit from the bridge all the way to the stadium, and I would sprint like as fast as I could after already running, like 4 miles, and getting to the point where there were times where I'd like throw up when I got to the end of it. And I'm just like, I'm busting my ass. I'm working hard. This is going to pay off. And then I'd go out and give up, you know, 3 runs, 4 runs, get my head beat in on the field. And I just couldn't figure it out. Be like, what is going on? Like I'm working so hard. Like I should be having success. And one of the things my dad, I don't think he came up with this quote, but my dad, one of his favorite lines is, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So I've always thought that, and I've always, taken that to heart and done it. And it just wasn't working. I was not getting lucky by any means. And I figured out like maybe I was talking to our strength coach or talking to somebody, and they're just like, "What are you doing? That doesn't make any sense." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not seeing the results." So I actually I backed off that, stopped doing it. Performance went up a little bit, but years later, I think in 2005, I pretty much stopped running altogether. I just, what the heck just happened? My light kicked off. But, 2005, I literally stopped running. I was just like, this is not feeling good on my knees and hips. Like, I want to save my energy for the game. And so I do like some sprints every now and then. I do other things, but running for me was just not beneficial. And that's one of those things where it seems like you're not working as hard and it's hard to do. But once you find like that routine, um, and you got to run, with it. No pun intended. But you've got to figure out what makes you successful, and that can be different for everybody. And there might be some guys who can lift, 4 days a week during the season. I wouldn't recommend it, but then there's guys you should only lift twice. And if you're in a big league season, if you can get 2 lifts in a week playing every single day, especially as a reliever, because you just never know when you're going to be out there. Starters, they have that. I mean, starting is hard, don't get me wrong, but they just have it made when it comes to routines because when you're throwing your bullpen, when you're pitching. You're in a starting rotation in the big leagues. You're pitching every fifth day for the most part. So most of those guys are either working out after a start that night. That's what makes it beautiful being in the big leagues too, because every visiting clubhouse has a weight room. Your home clubhouse has a weight room. So it's, you don't, not like the minor leagues. You got to get up at 10 a.m. in the morning, go to whatever gym is around and get your lift in before the games. But that's where big leagues, tough league, they don't have any tougher. There's not a league higher than that. So you get those benefits, you get those benefits of like, hey, I got a weight room right here. I can throw and then go in and get my lift in. And then lifting on your bullpen days as a starter, pretty much a given. And, you just do it over and over. And they're usually full body lifts. You're not breaking it up. You're not doing bodybuilding lifts and things like that. So with that being said, one question for you as well. When you were playing, was there any specific things that you did either in the weight room, running wise, anything like that, that you found to be super beneficial and worked like better than most other things?
That's such a great question. I feel like I wish someone would have asked me that while I was playing, because I think I didn't have a very good understanding of why I was doing certain things. It was just effort. I was just doing anything I could think of, anything I learned from a strength coach or another player. Like I was taking other people's routines or other people's advice and just trying to apply it. When in reality, what I should have done is really have something tied to the purpose of why I was doing those things. Like lifting wise, I would do a ton of upper body, posterior chain stuff because I heard you're supposed to have a lot of back muscle activation in season to make sure that you're not overloading. Like I had a pec issue in college and like, oh, well, you have anterior tilt in your shoulder. So you need to do more reverse. But I didn't know at what capacity or how much. And what planes I need to be on, or if my scaps were depressed, or if they were protracted, or what was going on. But I would say that changed throughout my career. If I had to start over, I would have been doing things like arm care and testing with a dynamometer. I would have had a little bit more of an understanding on volume rather than just have to hit a certain amount every single day or every single week. Things that helped me later were isometrics, being able to just have, quality joint integrity and some activation in muscles like my hamstrings, which helped me run longer throughout the season. And then it was breath work, mobility as a catcher specifically, being able to have a recovery routine for my lower body was something I started to do more regularly. And that was something as simple as like mini band routine, AD duction work. Started doing a little bit of cryotherapy and Normatec later in my career and stole more bases as I got older, which was crazy since I just knew how to take care of my body a little bit more effectively. But I think this resonated with every part of my routine, even with the cage. Like, I didn't think you should just go in there and hit 200, 300 swings every day. But early in my career, absolutely. That's what I was thinking. Like, okay, I got to go spend an hour in the cage every day because that's how pros do it, or that's how you get better. It was one speed and that's it. But then I started getting around better, smarter, more effective athletes and realizing like, hey, 10 swings off the tee to get feel is probably more productive than 50 swings and you're cranking exit velo, but you don't have the capacity to really do that throughout the season. And now
Yep.
you're breaking down, you have an oblique issue, your hips hurting, and you're like, well, I don't know why. Um, but I guess, to answer your question, things that helped me were really having that routine from the start of the day. I would get on the 10 o'clock bus, go to the weight room 2 to 3 times a week, no matter what, whether I was catching that day, not catching that day, not sure, playing the outfield, DHing. I always anticipated, okay, I'm playing today. What's going to be the best thing to help me get ready? But also, I need to play a week, a month, 3 months from now. What's going to help me stay prepared throughout the season? So it was having quality food, getting enough rest, hydration, going through my mental preparation where I was thinking about having success, and then also physically just getting in the weight room to activate the muscles, to move around, to feel strong without feeling overly fatigued at any one point. Is that fair? Does that make sense? It's a lot, but I think it
Yeah,
evolved
absolutely.
definitely throughout my career. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why I love another thing. We talk about this. This is why we love doing what we're doing because we had those experiences and we can pass those off rather than someone sitting there and like they have to figure it out on their own and by the time they figured it out might be too late. We can interject and be like, "Hey, let's try this. Like this worked for me." And obviously everybody's different. When I was playing, in the minor leagues, you have to go to the weight room. It just there was not as big of a there was not a a very big emphasis on strength and conditioning and health and diet and things like that. Now we had strength coaches. I don't want to say that they didn't do anything. Had some really great strength coaches over the years, and one thing, they would always find something for you to do or something, if you're in Hickory, North Carolina and you're back in some random room where there might be a body blade and some push-up stands or something, you could always get something in and turn that into a good workout. But I found as I got older, I definitely, like I definitely definitely took advantage of being in the big leagues where I wasn't a big fan of working out before games. It was just, I never liked it. I didn't like to feel, weak or tired. Um, and as a reliever, that's kind of tough. You might pitch two, three, in the big leagues, 4 or 5 days in a row. I don't think they do that much anymore. But back when I was up, I'm not going to go wear myself out in the gym before a game if I've pitched 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row, because now I've got to come in and I might only have enough for one hitter and I spent it all by doing a workout beforehand. So when I was in the big leagues, that was a huge blessing, just having access to different weight rooms on the road and at home. And you learn to kind of, tweak your routines here and there as you have things more available to you or less things available to you. Because I did go from the big leagues to the minor leagues again. And now it's like, all right, so this is how I usually do it, but now I don't have access to this. So what do I have to do? Um, Even my last year playing, when I came back at 44 and played, and I'm in San Antonio, nice weight room in there, but nice weight room for a minor league park. We'll say that. Not nice by any means. But you go on the road and there's nothing. And I'm like, I'm not getting up at 9 o'clock in the morning to go to the gym. I'm 44 years old. I'm going to save what I have for the day for when I go to the field. And you could usually put something together, something light, body weight wise or whatever. And when I was there, we had our facilities for a couple years then. And so I had a bunch of different things I could do. And the one thing also that helped was having the dynamometer, doing those routines as well. When I didn't have enough weights or whatever it was on the road, I could turn to that routine, and it was definitely plenty for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's you gotta find a way to get it in and get something done. Knowing it's not always gonna be perfect. That's a big mistake that athletes make, especially younger ones, high school, college, first year pro guys, is they have this perception of training and preparation that looks a certain way. If they've been blessed to have a facility or a coach or a mentor, someone that's helping them with that, they have this understanding of how it looks in a perfect setup. But then once that gets taken away or they're in a new setting, they have to be able to sustain some level of it where they're still focused on getting the uh, getting the output that they would be looking for from that stimulus. And if they're not getting that and they're doing nothing, that's one of the biggest mistakes younger athletes make, which ends up leading towards pain and poor performance, right? We always talk about these in season athletes going from doing their best and training hard and making all these gains. They get in season and they're like, oh, well, yeah, our coach doesn't let us do plyo balls and I don't have the bands there. And I forgot to get my dynamometer testing and we don't really do weight room at school. So they do nothing rather than finding a way to adapt and try to reprioritize their time to, even if it's just 30 minutes in one way of chipping away at something that's keeping them healthy. It's so much more valuable. So they really need to make an effort at avoiding the mistake of thinking that everyone's routine has to be the same. And here's one thing I would say for sure. If your program, whether it's a high school or college or a travel ball team or another facility, is just putting everything up on a whiteboard and saying, hey guys, this is what you need to do. That is better than nothing, but it is not enough to keep everyone performing at their best or staying healthy or really accounting for the differences in their routine, because ultimately not everyone's playing all 162 games. Not everyone's the starting shortstop. Not everyone's the number one reliever or starting pitcher. So their routines need to accommodate for that, especially if they're trying to separate themselves within their team, within their league, within their conference, or whatever their type of goals are. And I think that's one of the most common mistakes is athletes think, hey, I'm doing something, so they mistake activity for productivity. Like, oh yeah, I do work out at school. I'm like, okay, you're doing the same workouts as everyone else, and how come you guys haven't had a D1 scholarship in 15 years? So it must not be enough for the standard that's being held to get to that level that you say your goals are at. So that's kind of one of the most commonly resonating things that parents will talk about. Oh, they work out at school, they throw bullpens at school, they hit there, so they don't really need to do more. And I said, that's true. They don't need to do more. They are going to get better. It just may not be at the pace that you're looking for to reach the level of exceptional return that you're looking for. And that's what we talk about goals constantly, because it's easier to stay grounded in their process if they're understanding that their goals have to be met, not just in a convenient window in the off season when everyone else is also still hungry for that. Everyone wants to play in the big leagues. Everyone says they want that D1 scholarship. Well, there's very limited opportunities, and it's like a 1% of the people that play end up getting that chance, let alone even an opportunity to play in college. But ultimately, one of the most common mistakes that you need to avoid is just doing the same thing as everyone else and thinking they're going to have exceptional results.
Yeah, there are very few people who can do that. There are some phenoms out there. That's what all of this you got to realize too. There are a lot of people out there who don't have the same skill set, or they weren't blessed with the same skills as somebody else. And you have to be able to realize that. I mean, there's some guys, and I'm sure you played with them, they're just ridiculous athletes, and they can wake up, roll out of bed, and throw 100, or hit a ball 500
Yeah.
feet and never touch a weight, never do anything. And you shouldn't model yourself after those guys if you're not one of them. And even those guys, they don't play for very long if they don't figure it out. If you start losing that a little bit, those are the guys who crash very quickly. They're the ones that are just base their whole skill set and their whole level of where they're at on their ability. If you're able to kind of put the work in, and that's where you see Hall of Fame guys, they have that, they're at that skill level, but then they put the work in to get them to that very high echelon of player. I think really to just close out this conversation, I obviously agree with everything you were talking about. Everything is so individualized, and you have to realize that if you're a starter or you're a reliever or you're a catcher or you're a bench player or you're a DH, you are going to have to do different things in each of those scenarios to stay at your peak during the season. It's not the one size fits all. And, you've kind of brought this up where we've had kids who are behind, and maybe they train with us in the off season. They go to the season, they quit training. Well, now they're not even really playing either. So it's not like they're on the field every day, getting the reps in, getting innings, throwing pitches. They might not be doing anything, but now they're doing the same thing as the starting shortstop, as the ace of the team who's starting anytime that he can pitch. And they are doing the exact same things, and they go like, oh, well, this guy's doing it. Yeah, but you should be doing something completely different. You need to get better. And now you're not even playing and you're not getting better. And one other thing that, training with us, which we provide, is you don't have to be in the facility every single day. If you have a bunch of games and you can't get in, we can put your program on there for you. You can go on your phone and you can look and go like, oh, okay, this is what I have today. And even though you're not coming in, you're still getting, the attention that you need. You're still getting the workouts, the lifts, the mobility, what you need to do after a game or before a game. Or, maybe you didn't play. Maybe you're a pitcher, you're a PO, and you just, you rode the bus, you watched the game, you came back. You can go to your high school gym, or maybe you have a gym at home or whatever. We can always program that stuff. So that's one of the, you know, the things with our training program is we provide that. So you don't have to come in every single day. Obviously, we want you in there. We want eyes on you. We want to make sure you're not getting into bad habits. But on those days where it just doesn't happen, that's just a huge benefit that we provide. All right.
With that being
Are
said,
we like an
Yeah.
hour and a half right now?
An hour 15. I think we started a little bit late, but I got one more
'Cause I
point on
see
that,
it,
and then we'll
the
wrap
thing.
up. It says
Yeah,
an
I see
hour, but I think
the red
I think it cycled
button
out.
on my end is only saying
Yeah.
34 minutes. So I was like, is that an hour and
Yeah, I think
34
when
minutes?
someone called, it like cut it out. So
Yeah, hopefully that didn't
mine
like
says an hour
stop
because
it
someone
and then
called.
restart again.
Yeah, I think it did. We might have a couple different
Yeah, we'll see.
uploads, but yeah, just to finish out the point on that. Well, I kind of lost my train of thought, but yeah, I mean, you said it, and we've talked about this all the time. Just athletes have to understand what works for them. And we can open this up into another conversation, but when it comes to our program and how we've helped a tremendous amount of people in a hybrid program or remotely, guys, like we have an athlete in Arizona, and we have one in Vegas, and we have a couple that are spread out throughout the country, is that we're focused on their individual needs, their individual performance. We're talking to them daily on things that they need, and we want them to have success on the field. We want their teams to do well because obviously that's why they play. They want to win. They want to be in a winning organization. They want to make it to the next level. It's going to be more fun, but their coaches are often very focused on the team, what the team needs, what's best for the team. What we're focused on is that player. So if that's a remote athlete that works with us, even though, the team went 0-1, they gave up 5 runs, what we're focusing on is, okay, how can you be a bigger piece of that puzzle? How are you contributing? And even if you had a bad day, how can we get you back rather than just, worrying about what the team needs the next day with PFPs and bunties and first and thirds? We're talking about, okay, how do you get ready to be your best when your time gets called? I think that's what I mean, where there's just never been a time where they could have someone like you with your level of experience, 13 years in the big leagues, 21 years in pro ball, someone like Josh or Dante or myself or Jonathan, who just have a good understanding of the game, just on their phone, in their pocket, 24/7. And I think we really take a lot of pride in that, in giving that individual feedback to what an individual needs, and not just, oh, follow the program. That's it. It's just the program.
Yep. That's definitely very well said.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
Let's
we could
wrap
keep
this
talking
up.
about this. I know it's like 12:30, so, well, 3:30 over there for you. So, man, I feel like we could do probably 2 or 3 hours, to be honest, but
I know we could be like
just
Joe
starting to open
Rogan.
up the rabbit hole. Yeah, maybe we'll get to that point and just being able to have a conversation where people are actually going to want to listen to it for that long. But yeah, this has been good for us to even just organize kind of the things that we wanted to bring to the forefront of the conversation. And I've had a bunch of people, which is cool, message me and just say, hey, I've been listening to what you guys are talking about, and it's so great to see you guys saying these things. I've been talking about that for years, or, I agree, and I wish more parents saw it this way, or more coaches. And there's so many great coaches in the area, in the Southern California area, in the South Bay, that they love these things being reinforced so that they understand, like, hey, parents, you guys need to do these things because we don't have the time at school to help every single athlete focus on their mechanics and their velocity. We got to work on, hey, he's got to throw strikes, and we have a team coming up that I got to see if he's even trustworthy to get out there on the mound. But yeah, I'm pumped,
Yeah.
man. Let's keep doing this. I know you got to get going, but great talking, man, as always.
Yeah, dude. I enjoy it. It makes it fun. And like that last video we did, I started kind of looking through it, and obviously got to figure out editing stuff, but there's just so
Yeah,
many clips from
yeah,
one of these, and I'm sure this one will be the same, and I'm probably missing a bunch. Uh, there might be some viral clips on there that I don't even know know about, but
yeah,
it's good
yeah. We'll just cycle
information to
through it.
have,
Yeah.
for sure. And then we can kind of put it in its full entirety, and um, maybe someone will find something that we didn't necessarily think that was important that we said, and it'll really resonate with them. You just never know how these things are going to go.
That's right. Coming soon to Spotify. The Battery.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to do it. I read that you can
Yeah.
you can publish it directly from this platform. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I'd also like
I
to
have a
figure out
buddy.
the delay. The delay
Yeah,
that
it's
makes it
gotta
kind
be
of
something that we
difficult.
can fix. Yeah. I'm like, "Wait,
Yeah, because
are
it's
you done
like I
talking?
have
Am
to
I?"
let you finish talking. I can't like say anything. You know what I mean? It makes it like it's not a
Yeah.
it's just a very weird
Conversation.
conversation sometimes because I know that there's a
Yeah.
delay. So I don't know if
Yeah.
it's internet on my end. I tried to move the internet earlier today, so hopefully that didn't
Yeah, we'll
mess
figure it out.
things up. But yeah. All right, man.
Alright, man. Well, good stuff. Yeah, we could shut this recording down, I guess, right?
Yeah.